Hey Chris, good morning.
Good morning, Brent. How are you?
Good. We met at Inbound this year after you had an awesome live podcast on your Talking Too Loud podcast session, and
Yes.
you're a thought leader, I would say, on we've all generated tons and tons of content, and how do we
Yeah.
break through the noise? And so I
Yeah.
was just open to, you do a lot of podcasting and interview experts and CMOs and probably CROs on this. Wanted to tap into some of your wisdom, and maybe just start with kind of what the genesis of why you started that series and when you started to recognize the breaking through the noise problem.
Yeah. So, I think so I started talking too loud a couple years ago, and the insight I had was the cost of producing content and the tools available now to produce content have changed the game. So it's actually becoming, and I would say at this point has become cheaper to build your own audience with a podcast or video series than it is to sponsor someone else's. And so if it's actually cheaper to do it yourself, way better to own the audience, way better to have more interactions on an ongoing basis, like easier to measure the impact on the business, all that kind of stuff. And so that's what caused us to start. I chose a topic. So my show is called Talking Too Loud because when I get excited, I can't control the volume of my voice. And so I was like, hey, I've done other series and done other things in the past. Like, if we're going to have something we're talking about, let's make sure I care. And that's probably close enough to what Wistia is because I care a lot about Wistia, our company. And so we started doing the show and interviewing guests and talking about marketing and what it takes to stand out and building different businesses and all that kind of stuff. And I would say the thing that you need to do to stand out, the thing that you need to do to get attention in this world is you actually have to go really, really deep on a topic. And you have to find a niche that really cares about that topic. And I think we forget with especially B2B content that like the people who are listening, the people who are watching, if they can gain an insight that actually changes their business or they can gain an insight that changes their company, like that can actually improve someone's career. They can get a raise, they can get a promotion. The business can do better if it's a founder or an owner, CEO. And that's a big deal. And so people will take those lessons, they will pay attention. And you just have to make sure you're getting really focused. If you're trying to do something for everyone, it won't work. I think that's something that is completely true. If you get really, really deep, then you have a shot of actually resonating with a group, with a community, and then things can take off. I have
Yep.
tons of tactical things we could get into about what to do with the content itself. Do you want to go there as well?
Well, let's but I do want to go there, but first I want to know, so getting really focused, it's a little bit scary, right?
Yeah.
Because you got to actually find an audience that grooves with that you can expand over time. How do you know when you're getting traction with a more focused topic?
Yeah.
How would
So the
a
first
how
thing,
would a
yeah, yeah. So one thing I think is a helpful thing to do is in terms of a tiny little niche is actually enormous on the internet. That's what we forget, right? Like in a world where everyone is connected, our entire culture is basically an internet culture today. Like memes galore, the content we watch is delivered through the web. It's tracked, it's iterated on. Like people get shows approved for Netflix and Apple TV based on what people are actually watching. This is not the world we were in 10 years ago. It's a completely different world, and the cultures are all internet based. Go look at subreddits. Go find some subreddits on Reddit and take a look at just how many people want to follow and care about some of these like hyper specific like topics and communities. You could do the same thing with looking at lists on Twitter and like look at the lists that people make of really, really specific things to try to get a sense of how big these communities are. That's
Yep.
the first thing you have to do is kind of build confidence. You can do the same thing on LinkedIn. In terms of how do you know it's resonating, the easiest way for any new thing, always, 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 is you have to find a way to get the qualitative feedback first. And so you want to give people a way to comment, or you want to give people a way to respond to a survey, or you want to do something, try doing something in person, see how many people come. You have to do it qualitatively first. It always shows up like that. So for us at Wistia, we're a video marketing platform. I'm doing my podcast, Talking Too Loud. How is it working? How do we know? Talking Too Loud is all these topics. They're not just about video, But like when people are buying, they're obviously thinking a lot about video. So what we noticed with talking to them, we've seen this with many other content series we've done, is that the sales reps will end up talking to people, how did you discover us? And you'd be surprised by how many people will be like, oh yeah, like I discovered you over here, and then I listened to Talking to Them. Someone referenced it to me. It's like, oh, okay. If you're seeing that at all, that's an incredible, incredible sign. And then once you do it long enough, yeah, you have the quantitative data. So for us, looking at the podcast drives tons of customers now, which is amazing. It was probably driving customers even early on, but we couldn't see it yet because there wasn't enough data to like tie it all together.
Yep. And on the qualitative, so you're hearing it from the sales reps, you might be surveying people, and you're just sort of looking for those themes and patterns that land for people.
Yeah. And we started doing, so for my podcast, you can subscribe via email on the website and get every episode, but you can also subscribe and listen and watch however you do normally with podcasts. And it's interesting because like what we saw is that the people who subscribe via email will tend to watch it more. And we have that quantitative data, so we can see, because they're watching and they're using Wistia, and we track the views and tap it into HubSpot and all these other things. You can see who's like what the conversion rates look like and how it's driving impact. But actually, the majority of the time with it is spent through audio and through all the podcasting apps. So it's kind of what ends up happening is people test and sample on the site, and then once they decide they want to really like it, they're getting something out of it. Then they subscribe and spend much more time with the brand over time.
Yep. Cool. So 2 other topics I want to cover in the time we have before the half hour. The tactics, but also just any stories like, as you interviewed people, are there a couple of strategies that really stood out for you?
Oh my gosh. It is
amazing. Top 2 or top 3?
Yeah. All right, I'll pull from some recent episodes because these are the things that are on my mind right now. One, we had a guest. His name is Mark Moses, who's a CEO coach, and he had sold a couple $1 billion businesses and now coaches other entrepreneurs. And we were talking about what to do, how to manage through a downturn, and also just like how he has helped these businesses scale massively. He talked about an example of like a Verizon franchise and how they got from like 80 million to I'm going to get the number wrong. I think he said billions of revenue, if I remember correctly. And basically this insight is very, very, very simple, which is like, if you want to scale a lot and you have something that's working, you have to go to the whatever the root input is, and you have to keep going until whatever the root input is. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you get all of your goal is you need 100,000 customers, and that's going to make you $1 billion in revenue, right? Well, where do the customers come from? What pages do they go to on your website? What caused them to sign up? You go back and you discover, all right, your best channel is your blog. Then you say, okay, the blog is the best channel. What does it take to, you keep going back and you're like, is it actually the number of, like, what is the gating factor towards you writing that blog and shipping more stuff? Is it writing the number of blog titles? Is it higher? Is it hours worked with freelance writers? Like, figure out whatever the input is, that if you maximize that input, it should flow through the whole process. And it's a very, very simple idea. But we actually took it and we looked at our business and we said, what are the things that we need to be doing? And a simple example is like just the amount of stuff we're shipping that's customer facing is going to be what drives the business. And so made the Slack channel. Here's the stuff, special thing that's getting shipped. Everyone can see it. We're measuring an input, which they usually tell you not to do. But if that number is going up and up and up, then yes, we should believe that we're adding more value to customers, more people using the product. This thing is spreading, it's getting bigger, that kind of thing. So I thought that was really interesting. I had the head of business marketing at TikTok US on the podcast. This episode that just came out. And we were talking about the implications of TikTok in terms of truly it being like an entertainment platform versus being a social media platform. And I don't think that most of us marketers really get this yet, which is like, yes, on every other platform, there's a social graph, which means you subscribe to somebody and you see other things they send out. On TikTok, it doesn't matter if you have any subscribers at all. It is literally about how much interest in there is there and how much is this content entertaining. And so you have people who have no followers whose content is being seen by tens of thousands or hundred thousands of people, that's because the algorithm just takes the content. It's almost like a constant like audience panel automatically occurring. Like it's like sending it in front of people and it looks at how much time they spend with it. Do they rewatch it? Do they like it? Do they save it? All these different things. And then it propagates in front of more folks. And I think this implication we are seeing today on TikTok, and TikTok is threatening all the other social platforms. And I think we should expect that in the next, 3 years, all of the platforms are going to try to get some element of this model. And that is going to mean being able to communicate really quickly and also hyper specifically is going to be incredibly important to have your content propagate and to grow your audience.
Yeah, it's interesting because there is like in both of those is this idea of root cause analysis, yes. Right? And the one yes. where your lead's coming from, the other, like, why are people engaging?
Yes.
Even the one you did live with the CMO at Atlassian, it was like their whole point on communities around the world was find your champions, because your yes. champions are the ones that are driving that repeat activity. It's fascinating. It's kind of in a world of overwhelming information and noise. It's like we got to continually go back to core principles is what you're saying.
I think you're nailing it. I think that's exactly it. It is about getting back to core principles, which can be really hard to do, especially if you have a system that used to rely on what the core principles were. But now, like if you were to start first principles again, what would you do? You'd need a different system. Now you have to change it. And it's hard to create change. And what if it's kind of working? Should you keep doing it? Should you not? I think that's where it gets really complicated, but it's also, it's very, very, very simple idea. If you have people who already like your stuff and they're excited about it, then get more of them, use them to get more. It's very simple, but it can be hard in practice.
Yeah. I'm thinking of, I don't know if you ever heard Mark Roberge, who is the CRO at HubSpot from 0 to 100 million.
Yeah.
Talk about, the way they thought about it was, hey, I don't care about conversion through the pipeline early on. What I care about is that which customers are worth the most. And I'm going to pay you to find the customers worth the most, and very different idea than how other people grew their business.
Totally.
Cool. So helpful on some very clear applications of this kind of going to core principles or root causes. Now get more tactical as we've narrowed in on a niche and a core principle. Yes. There's set of practices that kind of help.
Yeah. So I would say, if you're narrowed in, whether or not you want to call what you're doing a show, I think you should use the principles of a show. And what I mean by that is you should figure out a format for your content that is consistent. And you want to test and find a format that works, that hooks your audience, gets them excited. For Talking Too Loud, it's like me and my co-host Sylvie always start talking about what has us talking too loud and talk about what's happening in our lives. And that sets a tone because we have a very good relationship that then enters into the interview itself. And we've figured out that we have to ask that same question of our guests, what has them talking too loud? And usually it's not their work, or we try to get them to talk about things that aren't their work. And that results in a different, more personal conversation. And then we don't change the format. It's the same thing every time. So we're not asking the question with each thing, what should this look like? Should it be A and then B and then C, or should we switch it to be A, C, D, or what? It's always the same. I think that's really important. It makes it easier to make the content. What it also means is you keep making content, you keep iterating, you can figure out how to make it better and better and better. So I think that's another thing is you should have a format so that the content's getting better every single time over time. And that also, if your audience understands what they're getting and you find more people who do want what you want, your audience is growing. The other key thing is that when someone's going really deep on a topic, they're willing to spend an enormous amount of time with it. We were just talking about TikTok, but the truth is, if you can give someone something that is going to change something real about their life or change something real about their work, they will spend a lot of time with you. We will read business books all the time. We'll go to conferences and spend days doing something. So if we can find something that really helps us, it is worth it. But you have to have the trust for someone to be willing to spend the time. You're not going to spend $2,000 to go to a conference for something you've never heard of, unless there's some really compelling reason to go there. And that trust can be built through atomized content. And so my big thing is like, okay, you have the long form content. We'll keep using the podcast example, talking too loud. How do we get more people to discover it? We need to create the right clips and the right moments and the right content that are derivatives of that thing. So every 2 weeks, there's a new episode that comes out, and then we go and we make 4 to 6 clips from that episode. We try to find things that are like the most poignant, the funniest, like the most empathetic, like the things that are the same, that why people like the show. We take that content, we put it on the different social platforms, we put it on TikTok, and we look at how it's performing. Then we take it and we make a version that's like put onto LinkedIn that has the written text. There's a version that's going on to Twitter. There's the email that's getting sent out. And by atomizing the content, we have many more opportunities to let people touch the sample, like explore that one poignant moment from the thing. And ideally, as you do this, you're building an engine, you're iterating on like, which order do you do for things, which things are performing best, which things that aren't performing best. But you end up having a lot of shots with one thing to try to get people to pay attention. And I think about this as like, you know, when you were just writing a blog post, it was about the title, right? If you have the great title, that's just going to get people to come back. It's not just about a great title anymore. It's about 30 seconds. You know, it's about 60 seconds of audio or video that's going to really hook someone in one of these other places. But if you can hook them and add actual value, they will come back and explore the whole thing.
Yeah. So the atomized content, really, it sounds like it both serves the need for repetition.
Yes.
They're hearing it in multiple ways, but also if I think about Bloom's taxonomy and learning styles, is people consume in different ways. And now you give them the opportunity to consume in different ways.
That is exact. I think about that so much. I think also COVID helped us see this, but our audience is in control. The audience gets to choose. They get to, and some people want to watch and some people want to listen. Some people want to read. So give them all the options, please, because you're missing out on how some people learn, how some people consume if you don't actually do that.
Yeah. Cool. I think I've got a great article for all our purposes on a video clip.
Awesome.
We've been really efficient with our time. So unless there's other things you want to cover, I'll let you buy back 5 minutes.
No, thank you. It was great chatting. Thanks for reaching out. I'm sorry we didn't connect in person. And yeah, I mean, these are great questions, a great topic. Excited to get it out there.